Welcome to Heart Standard and to everyone else like us who has nothing better to do on a Friday night. My name is Craig Cairns, and in the continued absence of Joel, I have continued to bring in guests. And tonight, we have the man behind the mic at Hearts TV and one of the team behind Scarves Around the Funnel, and it's Laurie Dunsire. Laurie, do you know when Joel's back?
No idea. You tell me.
If he is ever going to come back.
See, just enjoying his break too much.
Maybe he will, and then this will be it. This is what you guys will be subjected to from here on in. It'll be me trying to get guests and having tech issues every time we try to start a video at a certain time. But anyway, if you will, just for a second, Laurie, I will just say that Heart Standard is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Edinburgh and the surrounding area, you'll find the one S1 Jobs. Start your search today at s1jobs.com. Now, Laurie, we have a big couple of weeks coming up, just about a 2-week period coming up where there's 3 crunch games coming up for Hearts. How are you feeling going into them?
I'm feeling fairly optimistic, I would say. Certainly with the big home game coming up, first of all, I think that'll hopefully set the tone after what was always going to be a pretty tough match away to Celtic. So yeah, I think it's good to have that sort of edge at this point of the season going into the split. Obviously, we were hoping at the start of the season that we would be fighting slightly higher up the table, but I think it's good that we have something to aim for. I think a European spot is still very viable. I know Cup would offer us that as well, but I don't want to put too many eggs in that basket, given there's still a likelihood that we'd have to beat Celtic if we can get past Aberdeen. So a league position that would give us European football, I think, is still very viable. And given that Dundee United are the next team up, that makes Sunday the cliched proverbial 6-pointer. So I'm looking forward to it. 3 big games. I'm hoping maybe by the Motherwell game, there's not the same element of risk involved in the outcome if fixtures go our way this weekend, but there may well be. And maybe that will help, because if we have to go there and we can't rely on just getting a draw, maybe it'll mean that we can focus on trying to get 3 points on the board. And then obviously the semi-final takes care of itself in many ways, regardless of the results before it. But you do want momentum. You don't want to go into that having missed out on top 6, having had some disappointing results. Great that Hearts fans have backed the team in numbers again. Obviously, another couple of thousand tickets available, so it'll be superb to see 22,000 or so Hearts fans hammed in for that one. And yeah, looking forward to them. I know it's not been the best season overall, to say the least, but I think despite some of the results that we've had, form-wise, since sort of Christmas turn of the year, has been pretty good overall. There's still some deficiencies, but it was never going to be some magical quick fix to turn this team around. So I feel like we are going in the right direction.
Yeah, that was kind of going to be my next question about it. Has been some turnaround, even if we could argue about there still being points dropped here, or where Hearts could have been a bit better, or like got things sorted earlier in the season or whatever, since exactly what you said, the turn of the year. Because if you look back to Ross County and everybody that was up there that day and the drive home, and just thinking that what else is this season going to throw at Hearts? And the form's been 3 defeats. The form's been impeccable.
Yeah, I think the only teams that have beaten us in the last 18 matches, I think it is now, are the top 3 teams in the division. And I think one of the big problems in the current picture is the fact that one of the 3 teams is Hibernian twice, which is, don't get me wrong, it's not acceptable the way that we lost those 2 derbies, because in the end, I think we deserved to lose them both, because slightly different games in many ways. But that's, I think, one that really sticks in the back of the throat a bit for Hearts fans, because although we've turned things around, although we're in a pretty decent position considering where we were, the fact that Hibs have turned things around even more and are currently looking very good for 3rd place does make it very tricky, because inevitably you compare yourselves to your city rivals, and right now they are comfortably above us, which I think does change the complexion a bit, and I think that's why there's still that slight element of certain fans aren't too happy or aren't as happy as they would have been. And it's just the way it is. If you're at Hearts, you compare yourself to Hibs, and if you're not winning derbies and if you're losing derbies, then as Robbie Nielsen found out a few years ago, Hearts fans tend to remember that, even if other results start to improve.
Yes, but hopefully, hopefully that's just an issue for this season and doesn't persist into next season. Hopefully the Hibs thing, yes, it is. I still accept, yes, it is a top 3 thing, and you do. I understand what you're saying about the caveats with Hibs there, but hopefully that's just like a temporary thing and not something that they kind of sustain. Let's look at the game on Sunday a bit more in depth. I suppose the big thing going into that will be what, as was going into Celtic Park, what shape, first and foremost, Hearts set up with, and within that, which personnel. And I think some of that's going to be dependent on a lot of team news today about returning defenders, basically. Various stages. McCart still seems to be an unknown because we've been in this stage for a couple of weeks now where McCart seems to maybe be okay and then hasn't shown up, but not shown up, but not being ready to play. So whether he's fit enough to play, he comes in and starts, I think. But then if Halkett's fit enough, does he come in instead of Nielsen? Is that harsh on Nielsen? Do they go back to the 2 instead of the 3? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I would expect him to go back to a back 4. I would say for a start. I think the Celtic one made sense, and it was purely because it was Celtic away rather than, I think, thinking about something longer term. So I would expect a back 4. I do agree that it's an interesting conundrum at centre back. I would prefer to see someone other than Nielsen in at centre back, with all due respect to him, especially given suddenly we have a few options there. Yet McCart, if possible, because I thought he and Steinwender were building a decent partnership. But if not, then Halkett's available again. I thought Halkett had a really good game last time we played Dundee United. He was coming on to a game, I think this season. Halkett's problem is never usually his performances. It's generally his availability. So if Halkett's available, especially given Dundee United's physicality, Sam Dalby up there, Halkett is the best headerer of the ball at the team. One of the best in the league, I would say. So up against a big physical striker like that, it would make sense for me to bring him in. Although equally, if McCart did make it, I could understand that. Right back is that conundrum, I think, just now, because obviously Gerald Taylor's out. He wasn't looking particularly great when he was available anyway. Adam Forrester is still what you'd expect from a 19-year-old. We've seen some flashes of him being a decent player, and he's promising, but we've seen some flashes of him looking less of a decent player, which I think he kind of excused because of his age, but he's at the moment still my first pick. I know people have spoken about shifting other players in there, putting Nielsen in there. I did see some chat about Steinwender. I know he's played there 3 or 4 times earlier in his career, but to me, he doesn't look like a right back to me. He looks very much like a centre back.
I think if Hearts need another right back between now and the end of the season, even if it's just for the last 20 minutes of a game, or if Forrester gets suspended or injured or whatever, I think it'll be Nielsen. I think he's probably the best.
He has played there this season for
St
Johnstone. Again, to me though, he's not a right back.
No, I don't think so. But I think he would probably be the best. I don't know, because otherwise, if you're playing a wing back, then maybe Forrest or something. Again, he's done it before, but But yeah, I don't know. In terms of right back for a very sort of like temporary thing, yes, I would think Nielsen would be I wouldn't like to see Kingsley back over there. I agree with you about Steinwender. Who else are you talking about? And then possibly you've seen a defensive midfielder go in and play fullback before. Just in football in general, there seems to be there seems to be transferable skills there. I've seen that happen before, so you could see like a curveball like that. But for me, the most likely would be Nielsen.
Yeah, I think it'll be one interesting part of it is what Dundee United do, because this Jim Goodwin Dundee United team I think of is playing a back three with wing backs, but they have shifted to a 4 in recent games. So I'd be interested to
I think that was
see,
enforced.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if they keep deploying that, because I wasn't keen on the diamond. To be fair, I've never been a massive fan of the diamond generally, but I certainly wasn't keen on it against a team that might play with a back three and with wing backs, because they do like to get those wing backs forward, especially Ferry on the left. I've been quite impressed with him this season. And when we've played the diamond, I always feel like our biggest weakness is on that right hand side. With all due respect to the players there, especially Forrester, he's just not always looked up to it, and he's been badly exposed at times in that diamond. So that would concern me a little bit. If I was Jim Goodwin, that might be a consideration for me, is to get Will Ferry up in that space as much as possible. We saw Hibs do it with Cadden in the second half in the derby, where we kind of got exposed repeatedly down that side. I'd be keen to see us move to the 4-4-2/4-2-3-1 if possible. And I do wonder if Critchley might consider the right side of that, depending on what Dundee United do, in terms of Musa Drama has been used there a few times because he does put in a bit more of a defensive shift. That might be a consideration. We're at home to Dundee United, so I don't want to kind of labour the point too much on thinking about the opposition, but it's just something to think about in terms of United will be happy to sit in, I think, and will be happy to try and counter and exploit space when it opens up. But I would like to see us maybe shift to more of a 4-2-3-1. If we're not thinking about Dundee United too much, then maybe Khartoum gets the nod. Shanklin sort of in the 10, Spittle coming in off the left, and Kabangu up top. But don't know what your thoughts on it are. As I said, I don't want to overthink the opposition when we're the home team, and I expect us to set the precedent. But it will be interesting to see what Dundee United do in this game, because they obviously they're off the back of a good result playing the back four. But I do think Jim Goodwin will prefer, if he can, to play the three with the wing backs.
I should say, for those watching, I did start this while the sun was up, and now it just looks like I'm recording this in some dark cave. I've tried to put my mobile phone light on in the corner to at least have some light here on my face. But yes, there was some light here when I started.
Turn my light off and
just so I feel better about myself. I'm going to go to the comments, and I will, through one of them, kind of answer your question. I'm confused. Is this Scarves around the standard? Rogue Daddy says, which we actually did a Scarves around the standard a few months ago. Laurie wasn't involved, but there may be one in the future. Who knows? There we go. Sunday's game. This is from David Young's Sunday's game. I've been to both Hearts United games this season. I've never been impressed by United. They're like 80s Wimbledon. I think that's a bit harsh, but I do see where you're coming from. They've not been good in the games that they played. Hearts, even the game that they won at Tynecastle, they came and they shit fested it, and they went away with all 3 points.
That had deservedly written all over it.
yeah, and even the finish was like a trundling sort of. Yeah. He didn't connect with it properly. It was a centre half. And they weren't good at Tannadice when we played them. Hearts were great that day. But yes, I'd say Dundee United have been effective this season. They've gone through a few different phases, but they've been effective.
The big thing for me is the fact they have the third best away record in the country, and they've actually got more points away from home than they have at home. And I think that shows in the way that they play. I think they prefer, and they kind of played like that at Tannadice against us as well. They almost seem to want to try and sit in and break on Hearts, but I thought we were very solid that game. We kind of nullified them, and we took our chance when it came on. But we were much the better side at Tannadice. But they don't always look comfortable being the team that's expected to, I guess, to set the precedent in a game. So I think they would prefer to hit on the break, as I say, get those wing backs forward and try and get balls into the box to the likes of Sam Dolby. So this is why Sunday could be the type of game that Jim Goodwin will relish, because the emphasis will be on Hearts to have the ball, to try and break them down, and he will know fine well exactly what Tynecastle can get like when Hearts aren't breaking a team down. I do hope with what we've seen from the kind of patterns of play from Hearts that we will be able to find a way through. We've got different options now. We've got Kabangu who can put a bit of pace in behind. I'm kind of hoping we can see Penrice and Spittle spark again. You know, I think Spittle in particular, he's kind of, I don't want to say gone off the boil, but he's been quite quiet.
The changes of shape,
yeah,
didn't suit him to the diamond. That definitely didn't
exactly. Yeah, I would like to see us try and get those two finding form again down that left-hand side, because yeah, United are going to restrict space quite a bit when we get into the final third, and I think one of our best routes to breaking teams down like that was often the at one point unplayable 1-2 between Spittle and Penrice, which just seemed to work constantly,
no matter how they tried it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Penrice linked very well with Cabangu last weekend. That was one of the few positives, and he's been getting involved more when those three were on the pitch together. Cabangu's been coming out and getting involved, and also sometimes Spittle was acting as a decoy, and then Penrice was finding Cabangu instead and stuff. So yes, I would like to see the Spittle back to his form in whatever shape that is, getting him linking with Penrice and with Cabangu. Just kind of on the shape that we're talking about, Gorgie Boys podcast is, can see us go back to the diamond, Halkett in for Nielsen, Spittle back in as well. You kind of already spoke about the diamond, so we won't go back to that, but this kind of leads me on to this from James Govan, who says, hey guys, hope you're doing well. Do we go back to 4-2-4 for Sunday and really go for it? Now, I am not saying that that's definitely the formation to go for, but I think if I had to pick my favourite formation from the season, or the favorite performances that I've seen this season, I think they've been when that 4-2-4 has really been at it, because you just never see it. You don't really see it. It's like a formation that you always used to see listed on like computer games and things like that. Whenever you had a drop-down menu for formations, it was always there, but you never ever seen a team ever use it. So partly the novelty of it, but it's in full flow, it's great. I love it.
Yeah, I do like it in certain games. I would be maybe slightly concerned because we've done it in different ways. We have done it when it's looked actually like a 4-2-4, when we've actually had,
and it got exposed on Boxing Day,
and we've been exposed quite a bit. And then we've done it sometimes when we've called it a 4-2-4, but it has looked like more of a 4-2-3-1. Sometimes the 4-4-2, the 4-2-4, and the 4-2-3-1, there's not much difference between them. In certain games, I think we've seen that, depending on who we deploy. I guess if we're doing a 4-2-4, my question would be who are the players in the four? I guess Spittle's going to be your obvious.
I say Khartoum, but
left side of it.
I know,
and
that
if you've got
not
Khartoum,
the most popular.
It would probably be for me. I guess my concern with that is we are, if you break that press, then you are leaving yourselves very exposed either side. Obviously, I assume we're talking about maybe Benny and Devlin being in the centre. You're going to be relying on them to cover a lot of ground either side of them. And it's just that concern with right back as well, which is why maybe more of a 4-2-3-1 with someone who will protect Forrester a bit is something to consider. But as I say, we're at home to United. They will sit very deep, so maybe they will give us the opportunity.
And a point's good for them. A point's good for them. Jim Goodwin's already calling it a
Goodwin's
must-win
happy.
game for
He's
Hearts.
happy to play for points in games like that, like, as in a single point. He
get it forward.
For that reason, because of the fact we're at home and the team we're playing, I think they will probably sit deep enough that we might be able to deploy something like that. I definitely don't want to see. I don't want to see the diamond. I don't think we'll stick with a back three. So a variation of 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1, or 4-2-4 would be my choice. And I'm with you. I would like to see Khartoum in there and Spittle. And I know that that's kind of what Critchley wants to do. He wants to see those inverted players, and he wants to get the fullbacks or the wingbacks overlapping. I guess with 4-4-2, it's maybe not as much of the overlapping. So maybe that's why I would like to see a 4-2-3-1. So you can see what Spittle and Khartoum can do coming inside, while Penrice and Forrester can kind of stretch the game a little out wide.
Fair play. There's tons of other comments I'm not going to get to that are regarding the game. Thanks to everybody that has in touch. But what we have put a wee bit aside at the end for talking about league reconstruction, because it has reared its head again. It looks like it's already dead in the water. It does make you think whether this was released. Sometimes things are leaked so that public opinion can be tested, and then they can either kill it or go with it based on that. And sometimes it's leaked just with the nefarious intention of just killing it. I don't know if this is either of those, but it seems to be that already enough clubs have come out publicly against it because of the 11-to-1 voting structure. But what were your thoughts when this first came out, Laurie?
I genuinely thought it was April Fool's when on the 1st of April there was mention that they were looking at a 10-team league, which is, you don't even need to canvass opinion. I think most of us would know what the general consensus is, that people want more teams in the league if there's going to be a change. You don't want less. And apart from anything, you've got an 11-to-1 vote, like you say. How are you going to get 11-to-1 majority vote on teams to reduce the number of
slash their own throats?
Knowing that two or three at least are going to think we're likely to have to drop out of the division. There's no point in that. You're just never going to get that through. The only way is more teams. And I think the tricky thing is they're obviously talking about one of the driving factors is they want to cut the amount of games. Now, most of the viable, or in my opinion, viable alternatives that have been floated would tend to increase the number of games. And the problem, so I guess the problem is that, and the fact that you need to keep, I don't like this, but you will need to try and keep 4 fixtures because they will always, at least short to medium term, they're always going to vote for having Rangers and Celtic playing each other 4 times because of the TV deal factor. I don't like that that's the driving factor, but there's no point in skirting around it. We know they're not going to vote in a league which sees the Old Firm games cut in half, and a lot of teams won't want to cut the amount of times they have Celtic and Rangers coming to their grounds. I don't think Hearts will be driven by that, but I think there will be teams that will feel that way. So I think one of the ones I didn't mind the look of was the 14 and an 8 and 6 split, but the problem being it's going to give more games, at least for half of that division, depending how they do it. So I didn't really read too much into it because I just don't think it'll happen. And like you, it's weird that it was leaked in this way, especially talk of a smaller division, because it's just never going to happen. And for me, that's just a stupid way to do it. If you're going to do it, look at more teams. You want to grow the division. You want to get more variety of games and teams in there. You want to, you can talk all you want about can you sustain a bigger league. There's lots of countries that have bigger leagues than what we do. And the Championship has got plenty of teams in there who could add to the top flight. Falkirk, Ayr United, Livy, Park Thistle, Wraith Rovers, Dunfermline. There's plenty of teams in there that have been in and around the top flight before and could be in there again. So I would like to see us change the division at some point, but not reducing it. And I don't know what the viable alternative is because of the way we're so driven, unfortunately, in this country by 2 teams playing each other and potentially playing at other grounds as well.
That's it. I think for me, it's funny because Neil Critchley said today the coasts are embargoed, but I'm not really giving too much away. No, these weren't the embargoed ones, actually. He was asked about league construction, so these will already be out. And he was kind of saying, I've not been here long enough to really have an opinion on like whether the split is good or bad. But he did say that in the short time he's been here, he says everybody says to him, regardless of like position, fan or somebody in the club or whatever, that everybody like wants a bigger league. Maybe not like people in the club, but like fans and everybody he speaks to and people close to the club, like they all want a bigger league, not a smaller league. So he found it a bit strange in that respect. So for me, yes, it's weird to go against the popular opinion, and I think it should be bigger. And I actually think that the reasons you're talking about there, I actually think that, I'm going to sound like Trump here, but I think there should be some short-term pain for long-term gain. I think we should forget about 4 fixtures a season, 4 Old Firm games a season. The Old Firm coming to your ground twice a season.
Oh, I would like to.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm not. I'm not arguing against you. I'm not arguing against you, but I just wish that was more of a, I don't know, more of an accepted opinion amongst people who actually make these decisions, because that's what people want. You'd rather Rangers just at your ground once that season. That it makes it like a much more of an occasion, and it makes it more competitive. It makes it more likely that you're going to get a result in it, and then it just increases competition across the league. But then again, I don't know. And then you get a thing about budgets. That's the real thing that needs to happen to increase competition, is to redistribute wealth throughout football. But we're only heading in one direction with that. So for me, there's too many. The sort of bigger picture of it all, it stops us from making what I think would be the right decisions, or not even considering what would be the right decisions. And that is what most people want: a bigger league, playing each other twice, and most people want to do away with the split. But I don't know. To give it its due, we're still like going. What would be meaningless mid-table fixtures that have a bit of meaning at this stage of the season. At least it gives us that. Yeah,
I think it's the self-interest when it's a members' organisation like it is. Too many clubs will just think short-term and self-interest, which is natural in many ways, and they won't think bigger picture. But yeah, I think ideally in Scotland, if you were to start over, for me, you would have 2 bigger divisions and then more regionalized below it would be the better way to do it. More variety.
That would suit a lot of part-time clubs. Like off the bat, that just suits a lot of part-time clubs.
Yeah, I think 4th tier teams who are semi-professional having to make some of the distances that they do is hugely expensive. So I think 2 bigger divisions would be the better for me. I would, rather than having to go to some grounds 3 times, which you do with a split, I would rather than play Celtic and Rangers 4 times, play an Ayr United, play a Partick Thistle, stuff like that. And I think fans would definitely go for that. I think on the whole, you don't need to do any new polls or anything. I think most fans would want a bigger division. The problem is the clubs themselves, and 2 clubs in particular. But that's what we've got. It's Aberdeen's fault. It's all Aberdeen's fault.
It's all Aberdeen's fault.
Aberdeen had the chance to change the complexion when Rangers weren't there, and they blew it. So basically, it's all Aberdeen's fault.
Yeah, I remember listening to that saga when it was when Sportsound was nightly. I remember listening daily to that saga unfolding. Yeah. And although it would be funny if they rushed through a smaller league for next season and stopped Falkirk getting promoted again, that'd be pretty funny.
Yeah, it would be.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. Hold an old grudge against Falkirk that goes back decades.
Unless we get bottom 6 and then somehow get dragged into it again.
Oh, I know. That could still happen. Fingers crossed that doesn't. I mean, I think tried to do what is probably like a 3-week debate in about 5 minutes there. So I hope we kind of did it justice. As I was kind of talking and my thoughts were unraveling as I was saying them, I was thinking, God, I need much more time to explain what I really mean here.
Absolutely.
So I hope I made sense in that sort of garbled answer that I gave. But thank you very much for giving up your time on this Friday evening, Laurie, and joining us.
No problem at all. It's a pleasure.
And thanks everybody for tuning in, for all your comments. Sorry I didn't get to them all. Please check everything out at heartstandard.co.uk. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and we will see you all soon.